chord progressions every time with Peggy. Peggy! In our 10 powerful chord progressions video, we showed you how to get that, well, power. Today, I'll be giving you some tips on how to write better chord progressions that'll work in any style, genre, or mood. For the sake of this video, I'm going to stick with one chord progression so you can really see the changes along the way. It goes 1, 5, 6, 4. Just remember, you can apply these techniques to any chord progression. If you don't already have the MIDI pack for this session, you can grab it here and follow along. You can also pick up our powerful chords pack while you're at it. I'm assuming you already know how to build chords, but if you need a refresher, check out this video, also here. I'll be staying in C major and I won't be touching any transposition knobs. If you know what that joke's about, comment below. The first way to make better chord progressions is by using chord substitutions. That means replacing a chord with a different chord. But how are you going to know which one to replace? Enter our good friend, the circle of fifths. Hey Circle, how's it going?
I'd rather not say. I'm feeling a major slump in my mood lately.
Oh yeah, how's that?
Musicians aren't substituting their chords anymore. It makes me feel sad. I'm more than just an object to look at and memorize.
Well, Circle of Fifths, I've got great news for you. Today, we're gonna substitute chords.
Oh my God!
The Circle of Fifths lays out simple chord substitutions that are easy to swap in. In this case, I'm going to be in C major, so the tonic is C. You can replace your tonic chord with the relative minor, right below it, which is the 6th chord. Or you can go down and to the right and replace it with the 3 chord. The 4 chord, F major, which is right beside the tonic, can also be replaced with its relative minor, D minor. Let's go back to our chord progression of 1, 5, 6, 4. Starting with the tonic chord, let's move down and to the right and replace it with the 3 chord, E minor. We can also try replacing the 4 chord with its relative minor, in this case, D minor. We now have a whole new chord progression that can complement the old one. Another useful way to switch out chords is by using parallel chords. That means swapping out the major for its minor or vice versa. So in our 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, I'm going to try swapping out the 4 chord for its minor. It's going to sound like this. Ooh, so dark and mysterious. The magic of chord substitution. The second way to make better chord progressions is by using passing chords. It's sort of like a pit stop between any 2 chords to add a little extra flavor. Okay, so say you're driving to work. Same boring old drive, right? But what if you add a pit stop to an amusement park before you go to work? Can you imagine what a great day you're gonna have? Using passing chords is exactly the same thing. Really, passing chords are an amusement park.
Yeah, I mean, you go on the ride, it's great.
Okay. I'm going to try adding a passing chord between the 6 and the 4 in my progression. In this case, we're going to use a secondary dominant. I'm going to take the 5th note from the scale of the 4th, which is F major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is C. And I'm going to make that a dominant 7th chord. Here's what it's going to sound like. Another type of passing chord that can spice up your chord progressions is known as a diatonic passing chord. That means we're going to use chords from the scale that we're in this case, C major. You can put those chords in between any gaps in your chord progression. In this progression, there's lots of space between the 4 chord falling down to the 1. So let's fill in the missing 3 and 2 chords. Here's what it's going to sound like.
Okay, now read the line.
What line?
Bottom of the section there.
Wow, I feel like I'm at Six Flags, woohoo. Imagine that 3-note chords are like the foundation of a very tall building. If you want to build yourself a skyscraper, try adding extensions to that chord. Now you have a soaring chord with a lot of character and color. You've probably heard of seventh chords before, especially if you've watched my video here. You'll remember that you can make a seventh chord by adding the seventh note of the scale and altering it from there. Adding extensions is very similar. The most common chord extensions are the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. You can also think of those notes as the 2, 4, and 6th degrees of the scale, but an octave above. Listen to this. Here's the chord progression we've been working with, but with some 7ths, 9ths, and 13ths on top. So much more color, and because there's so many extensions you can use, there's an unlimited number of options. You'll commonly find the flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, and flat 13 used on dominant chords. On major 7th chords, you'll often find the 9, the sharp 11, or the 13th added. Minor 7th chords always sound great with a 9, an 11, or a 13 added. If you want to learn more about these types of extensions, check out the blog post I've linked below in the description box. Not up here in the top left. Tip number 4 is voice leading. Voice leading is what makes the transition between your chords smooth and effective. In these examples, I've been using root position. That means the root, the 3rd, and the 5th of the chord work in that order. You can also use chord inversions. If we stay in root position throughout, like I have been in this video, the chords sound pretty jumpy and disconnected. To smooth things out, we're going to use chord inversions. That means we're going to use specific notes of the chord up or down the octave, and that's going to give us a more seamless transition through the chord progression. Here's our original chord progression in root position. 1, 5, 6, 4. Now we're going to try moving some of the notes up or down an octave for a smoother transition. I like to use the common note in the previous chord to make my decisions about which notes to move. Then we'll have a much more seamless chord progression. Much, much smoother. Using melody as inspiration for your chord progressions opens up a whole world of possibilities. Remember, melody is king. Chords can help carry the melody, but they will never replace it. However, there are a lot of interesting things you can do by reharmonizing the chords under your melody. Check this out. First, I'm going to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow with its original chords. Now I'm going to try it with an interesting reharmonization. It's all in the chord tones. Technically, any note in the melody can be a chord tone. When I'm reharmonizing my melody, I'll try and make that chord tone the root, the 3rd, or the 5th of the chord I choose. Let's use Daft Punk's Get Lucky as an example. Here's the melody. With the original chords, the melody hits the 3rd of each chord. But what if we replace the chords so the melody lands on the 5th of each chord? Here's what that sounds like. It's the same melody, but with a strangely different feel. Almost like a country song.
And you can put in wedding singer. Sounds like a country song.
Sounds like a country song.
Obviously, you don't have to stick with the same chord tone throughout like I just did. Feel free to mix it up or even use the melody as chord extensions. I'm going to try the same melody again, but this time I'm going to play it all over an A minor chord. From country to something a little more funky, just like that. Writing chords doesn't have to be a hassle. There's nothing to be ashamed about using a great MIDI pack. The same chord progressions are used all the time. And best of all, MIDI packs are usually free. In the description below, I've linked to the best free MIDI pack I've ever found, as well as all of the great MIDI packs that we've created here at Lander. The best part is you can edit the MIDI after you've put it into your DAW. Make those chord progressions your own with all of the tips we've covered in this video. That's it for this one. And since there was so much demand for me to play you guys out on the lo-fi video, let me play for you the great 90s hit, Closing Time by Semisonic.